It is a full 104 I'm gonna be able to say it in a second. Hey guys, what's up? It's Manwood86. Now I'll try to be quick with this one. There's a little bit of a story behind it, so I wanted to get into that. I've had a long time watcher who's been a commenter on probably about 90% of my videos since I got started. His name's Jake, and this one's for you, buddy. I reached out to him and I said, hey, what are you looking for in a keyboard? If I could give you something, what would you want? And he was pretty humble about the whole thing, but he listed off things he likes in his now really old keyboard. This keyboard is a Deco Gear keyboard. For the most part, it sounded like a very stacked, nice little keyboard, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and order it and take a look at it. I think when I got it, it had only been out a day, so probably why I've never seen them before. Also, just kind of popped up an advertisement. It's a full 104 key keyboard. It's a mechanical keyboard. It has Cherry MX switches. This particular one has Cherry MX red switches. It's a really nice bezel, whole plastic bezel, really solid construction all the way around. And it's got a good hefty weight to it at about 1.22 kilograms according to my scale, which they say it's 1.25. I'm not going to argue over the 0.3 that we're missing there. The keyboard features a really neat media control. All the keycaps are double shot injection, and they're done on that really nice professional level, and I like that a lot. So there's everything about this keyboard to me screams something you might go and spend a lot of money on, and it really, to me, I don't think fell in the price range where it probably could, if that makes sense to you. I try not to talk about prices at all because prices tend to change, and you may just have to take my word on that when it comes to this keyboard right here, that you might be surprised at what weight class it punches at, and I hope that kind of tells you something. Now, having Cherry MX switches, just about everybody that knows a little bit about mechanical keyboards knows that these are kind of the creme de la creme of switches. Cherry was the first to really make the cross-stem switches. They're made in Germany, and they're made with great quality control. So there's that. Usually with a keyboard brand like this that you've never really heard of, or somebody that's making keyboards for the first time as part of their company endeavor, you end up with something a little less or a little more cost-effective for companies, something like Otimu or Kale even. And Kale's gotten more expensive over time, but things like Otimu or, you know, Zorro switches or TTC switches, those are more common to see in emerging brand marketed keyboards. Cherry MX switches are a big plus here. It does come with a 6-foot braided cable, and it is a USB Type-C connection that connects directly to the back of the keyboard. And while that's fine, I think I've gotten really used to the inputs being to the left or to the right. I think that makes it a little bit easier when you're setting it in front of something like a laptop, or if you have something that's directly behind that keyboard typically, then you have that protrusion, and it can be a little bit of a frustration to sort of cable route. It's a very minor thing, I know, but that's just my opinion. I would have preferred probably to see it on the left or the right side, somewhere not directly in the middle. It has plenty of rubberized feet on the bottom to help it hold the desk. On top of its already pretty hefty weight, so there's that also. There is a wrist rest that is super comfortable to use, and I don't typically like wrist rests, but the simple ease and just sheer comfort of this one is nice. The wrist rest is magnetic, so you can just sort of slide it up there and it'll pop right on, and you can pop it right off if you decide you don't want it there. It also has 6 rubberized feet on the bottom to help keep it from going anywhere on top of the magnets gripping it to the keyboard itself. Let's pause here so you can listen to what those switches sound like before I go too far, because I know some people just want to hear what the keyboard sounds like. And now that you've listened to that, we'll mention a little bit about the software. I don't use macros a lot, but it does have the ability to macro. I do want to quick note this here, and I'll say it again when I'm doing that, is just that the macro functionality in this keyboard is a little less intuitive than I've seen in other software programs. You can make macros. It just doesn't feel as easy. It's a little more complicated, but it looks like it would be more straightforward than it is. Anyways.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at a few things here. The key layout, I'm not really sure what you do with this other than just tell it whether you want it to be on media mode, macro mode, or keyboard mode. Macro mode for recording. Macros can be found here. It's kind of simplistic and not very intuitive. It's not like other ones I've used before, but I also don't mess with macros too much. So there's that going for you. But I did mess around, make a test macro, just played around with some stuff. If we're going down to colors, you have modes like painting modes. This is important to some people to be able to match their specified color or look. You can kind of go through and pick out the basic colors are off of the spectrum here and tell what colors you want to be what so that it looks a certain way. You do have to hit save all in order to save it to the keyboard. It'll stay on whatever mode you have it on prior to that. Now, if you don't want to do something like the painting mode, there is a list of effects. They're starting to all look the same across keyboards as time goes on. And there's some neat stuff in there, but you do have to tell it all save, it looks like, in order to see it. But in here, you have the drop-down list of whether you want to do something like static color. I don't know what that one's supposed to be, but I'm curious now. Things like a neon glow. We see these in a lot of things. A different kind of wave. This wave is an intersecting wave. It looks like from left to right and right into itself. Actually, I don't know if I've seen that on many keyboards. Not that it's a hugely important detail anyways. Then in backlighting mode right here, you could just turn up the speed and the brightness or turn down the speed and the brightness. The same thing you can essentially do on the keyboard manually also. That's a quick look at their software. It's all right. It probably could use a little bit more work. It is a fun little piece of software. It's very red also, if you can't tell. But yeah, that's a quick look at it. Let's get back to the rest of the video.
Now you may be noticing that pretty cool wheel that sits right on top of the keyboard, or at the top right side. And this wheel I actually didn't know was a button either at first. When I first got it out of the box and started looking at it, the wife took it and started making a noise with it, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "It's a big button." And I said, "Well, that's cool. I got to find out what that's about," which didn't really take long. I would have figured that out anyways. And like I had mentioned earlier, depressing that button on different keyboard modes will allow you to do different things, from turning up the light brightness of the actual keyboard itself to just functioning on volume and being a big controller for media control functions. Now inside the software, I didn't see anywhere where I could tell it specifically what I wanted it to do. So unless there's an update to the software later, as of right now, I can't go in there and say, "Hey, I want to click this button and have this function do X." I think that'd be a cool thing for them to include, so hopefully if they watch this, maybe they'll consider doing that and adding that to the software where we can have more control over the giant awesome media button and wheel at the top right. All the buttons that provide extra functions are labeled. There's also a quick guide that comes with the keyboard. I'd recommend not losing it. I'm going to post it here so that you can see it in case you need to pause this video and reference it. But they're all double listed on the keyboard also, so you should be able to kind of figure out what does what. There is a glowing light that goes around the outside of the keyboard that has multiple different functions, as well as the key colors themselves. If you go in there and change any of the colors or settings and you want the outside to match, or you just don't want the outside glow to be on, you can also turn that off. Because of its hefty matte black design, which looks great, it is a little bit dimmer on the RGB side, and that double shot injection on top of them being black keys really kind of absorbs that light feel. And while it does light up bright enough in a dark area, especially here in the daytime, you can kind of see that it doesn't light up as well. I really like this keyboard. I think that I wasn't expecting it, and maybe that's why I like it so much. When you see Cherry MX switches though, you kind of know that there's probably some good thought into how good they wanted this to be already. And it turns out it's pretty nice. Guys, I hope you find this helpful. I'll see you in the next video that I do. Have a great day, night, whatever it is, and I hope you enjoy this, Jake. I should mute the phone before I start talking. It's like a faux leather, and I'm going to tell you this, if you do get this keyboard, be sure and sniff it and go, "Blah," because that smells nasty.